How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dyson Sphere Program. Hope you guys have been enjoying the series so far. If you guys have, you guys know what to do. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Consider subscribing as it does help out the channel. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me, you know where to leave those. Other than that, let's get to today's episode. So, at the end of last episode, we began connecting things together and kind of slowly getting parts of the factory to turn back on. However, we have kind of run into the issue of we don't have enough oil, right? As previously addressed, we just simply don't have enough production here locally, or I guess domestically, so we do have to look off-world for new sources of oil. But before we do that, we need to make a couple preparations, because I already know where we're going to need to go in order to get the oil we need, and that location is going to, of course, be in a different star system. So we're going to have to make sure that we have everything set up and in place before we go off-world, because A, we can't just immediately come back here to grab anything we might need. So that's why I'm going ahead and queuing up plenty of things, from transports to just other machines we might end up needing. So of course I have logistics bots for local, and then I have the logistics transports for interplanetary transportation. We're also going to need a couple other components as well, such as the oil extractors. We're also going to need power poles, but I think we have plenty of power items, other than in order for us to kickstart the power, we need some wind turbines, which we do have on us, just because it is important to know that even though, yes, we have mini fusion reactors, in order for them to get started, although I guess I could just manually put a fuel rod in one of them and that would be fine, we have to, basically we have to kickstart it. We have to have some energy in the system already. So here I'm just trying to figure out what planet or what star system we need to go to. This one looks good, has 83 oil per second. We need 240 per second, so this will be a third of what we need, so this will be plenty for now. It's also another important thing to note, we need to make sure that we have the warp cores also in being made. I don't think we currently have them automated, or at least if I do, I'm not sure where they are being automated at, because when I ended up finishing off this recording session, I was manually crafting them, and you'll actually see me do that at some point. But anyway, regardless, we have to go light speed, but because we don't have enough energy to get there in one go, we have to wait for our batteries to recharge and kind of continue to warp through the interstellar space. I don't know what this area is called. I'm pretty sure it's... I thought it was interstellar space, but I feel like there's a different term used to describe the space between star systems. The void, maybe? I don't know. I'm not an astrologist. I don't think I am aware of anybody being an astrologist. But regardless, this is quite honestly the longest part, in my opinion, in this game. Is just the traveling between the star systems. It does and can take quite a while. So a couple other things that we're looking into to begin setting up is, not only do we have to rework the oil storage for the raw oil, we also need to make sure that we are aware of how we handle it downstream, so the refined fuel and the hydrogen. Because although, yes, we do need more of the fuel oil, and we can, for the most part, continue to use that, we need to make sure that we are capable of handling any sort of influx on either end of that supply chain. We also need to come up with a plan for how we're going to handle as these oil wells diminish in their returns. I mean, currently we don't have enough being mined, or we won't have enough being mined even after we get this planet tapped. So it is important to know that for now, we just need to keep hitting as many oil-rich worlds as we can and connecting them into the grid. But temporarily, that's that goal. But I think in the long term, right, as oil wells begin to diminish in their returns, we need to be aware of how that affects basically the overall supply chain. Just making sure that way we can keep ahead of it, so that there's no downtime on the production of the Dyson Sphere and the research as well. I'm not sure how quickly they'll diminish and how quickly we'll have to find new oil wells, but from what it looks like, we should be fine. Trying to think. I don't think we'll have enough oil wells for how many oil, or we won't have enough oil extractors for the number of oil wells that we'll find. Because if there's 83, even at 1 oil per second, that's still 80. I think some of them are like 1.3, but still, we'll definitely need more oil extractors than we currently have available to us. Then we're also going to need to make sure that we can identify really just the best way of getting it from here to the home world. Because although we can ship it like on one full transport ship, as these diminish, do we want to change the setting so that it doesn't necessarily ship at a full inventory? Perhaps, but I think I do want it to ship as a full thing, just because I want each trip to be valuable. I don't want it to be, oh, we shipped a transport drone or ship with only 50% of its possible cargo, right, and then waste 2 warp cores, one coming, one going, for only a quarter of the overall capacity that just came with the fact that you get one whole load going, one whole load coming. And so I view 2 whole loads in this scenario as just one, so even just a full cargo on one leg of that trip is 50% of its cargo capacity, because if it doesn't bring anything back with it, that's a wasted warp core. I mean, other than, I guess, getting the ship here. Although, I wonder if you could do some weird squirrely things where the transport ship, I don't know if the game currently allows this, but if you could transport, so say if you take the oil from this planet, you ship it back to the home world or wherever you're finding it, and then instead of that same ship going back, you wait until you have like 3 or 4 ships that need to go back to this planet, or because I think you can store 10, you wait until you're on number 9, so when ship 10 comes in with its oil delivery, it then picks up the other 9 transport ships, right, as a item in its inventory, and then you ship 10 ships basically back on 1 warp core. So you save on the warp cores. Not that they're overly expensive or anything, but it would be one of those weird, maybe min-max strategies, right? I mean, I don't see how saving on warp cores is gonna translate into a lot of extra resources, but I don't know. I feel like it'd be a weird thing to do, but something that's equally as interesting. So here you can see I'm just trying to prime the system. I didn't realize I could have just stuck a fuel rod in one of these and it would have been fine. I was like, no, I'll place the wind turbines, but the wind turbines kept trying to charge the interstellar transport hub, so I had to just go ahead and be like, yeah, okay, well, let's remove this power pole so nothing else gets power, and then it started working. Of course, there's plenty of oil wells here we're gonna have to tap. So definitely once we head back, we're gonna have to get more oil extractors queued up, because, well, I mean, regardless, we're gonna need everything we have in our production queue now, on our person. But we're also going to have to add more, because not only are we going to have to tap all the ones that are on this world, but we also need to tap any that are going to be on any of the other worlds, both in this system. I think this is actually all the oil for this system, which is good, so I don't have multiple planets. Although if I did, what I would probably end up doing is I would just have all of it shipped to one planet, and then from that planet shipped to the home system instead of each planet individually shipped to the home system, just so that way there was just one rocket or one transport ship going back and forth, constantly full of oil, which would be good. We do have to set up the receiving end, because right now we don't have any way to receive this oil. It's also important to note, speaking of those warp cores, we don't have any on us to put in here, and I don't think we have any in the logistics system to request. But again, I think at one time we did. I can't remember where they were. I mean, I guess I could go back and watch the videos myself to try to find out where they were, but I don't know how revealing that stuff will be. I think the best part about setting up these resource outposts is they are definitely not OCD friendly, and I'm sorry for anybody who's watching who is rolling over and pounding on the keyboard and pointing about how I should move belts a certain way so that it looks symmetrical and looks all nice and organized. I try to do that in builds where it's easy to do. However, on resource outposts in pretty much almost any game I play, if it's easily blueprintable, okay, fine. But if it's something where, in this case, it's pretty random and I don't really have a way of making it symmetrical, I'm hardly ever going to be here. Once this planet is set up, especially because it's oil, I will probably rarely, if ever, come back to this planet once it's set up and going. And all the oil wells are tapped. I mean, I might tap the resources that are on this world, but again, probably not. I probably won't. Although, I should probably start to check Beta Rindy 1, the mining world, to make sure that we haven't used all the ore we've mined. I don't think we have, because things are still flowing, but we did stop research and the Dyson Sphere production, which technically will have massively decreased our load on the system. And I think all the buffer chests are full everywhere, so it will be a while before we notice a sudden stop of ore. Which is a problem with having buffer chests, or buffers of any kind, is if there is a problem on your input side of getting more ore, we won't immediately see that there's an issue until well after. Right, because it's one thing to notice a slowdown in the amount of ore in the system, right? Because I might say, oh, well, hey, there's a slowdown. Let me go check the ore. Oh, half of the miners have finished. Let's add more. When you have a big buffer, sure, you'll still see that, but you won't see it to the same extent as miners running out, because the buffer will output at a constant rate until it's empty. So you'll pretty much have nice, solid, steady, even rate, and then bam, empty. And then it's like, oh crap, I have no mining machines getting this anymore, so let's go ahead and add more, but of course that, you know, takes time. I hate allergies. Right now there's a bunch of pollen in the air. It is awful. I'm dying. Right, but now that we have oil somewhat set up, it's not perfectly set up, because obviously we do have to still go back there to tweak a few things, but for now we're fine. So, let's work on the receiving end. Or rather, how are we going to intake, or I guess take in any oil? First thing we need to do is we need to get this oil well working. It's 2.2 per second, so that's already significantly better than some of the oil wells we have here. Alright, and then the other part is, so here's our current setup for how we have the oil being stored. It's not great. I'm sure we're going to move it. Those oil refineries to our left, kind of left, pretty much the original oil well build we did, or oil refinery build. I like it. It looks really cool, but it is not, I guess, again, technically it's scalable, but it's not what we need. It's not nearly enough of what we need, and all those machines and their components will get repurposed elsewhere in the factory. I do wish there was a recycler, though. That would be nice. Like a way to break down the machines back into the components you spent. I mean, it does seem a little nuanced, because realistically in a game like this, you can probably never have enough of any one thing, like machine-wise, because you could always just scale up your production, right? Or just add an extra one or two of a thing, and you'll just be fine, because a lot of the ratios don't come out perfectly. There might be perfect, like, golden numbers for things. And in terms of, like, if you're basing it on science per minute or science per second, there might be like, oh, well, if you want 63 science per second, you need exactly 20 of everything. I don't know if there's a golden number. If there are any golden numbers, let me know. Or if somebody has compiled a golden number sheet or a data set, also let me know and link that down below. That'd be great. I don't think there are. I'm sure there probably is, but it's probably a really big number, because a lot of the numbers I am using are already, at least in my opinion, fairly large in terms of scale. But again, maybe this is a tiny, minute factory compared to what some of you guys have built. Speaking of what you guys have built, what is the largest factory that you have ever built? Whether it's like a whole planet factory where you maximized every single tile and try to contain everything you could, excluding miners, on a single planet, or did you go massive system wide? Each planet had its own thing it was making, massive interconnected production chains, doing maximum science per second, to the point where you were doing like thousands of beakers or matrices a minute or something. I don't know, but definitely tell me down below what the largest factory you've ever done is. And if it's not in this, if you are watching this but have played like Factorio or Satisfactory, also let me know down below what's the largest factories you've done in those. The easiest way to convey that would be just something per second or per minute, because usually I can relate that to the size of a factory it takes to produce those things. Just because if I hear a very large factory, I don't know what you consider very large versus what I consider very large. Versus if you tell me, well, I'm making 10,000 science units per second. Okay, well, that's a lot. I'm pretty sure in just about any game, that's a lot of science. Especially per second. Now, if you told me, oh, well, I'm making 100 science per minute, okay, well, that's not a whole lot. You're probably gonna have a small, maybe a medium factory for something like that, right? So, definitely, reference points help. Oh, and this is the part where, I'm using my personal inventory to craft 4,000 warp cores. Don't worry, I plan on automating it. I just wanted to get some made, and I wanted to see how many I could make. So here's me trying to / realizing, oh wait, I could just automate this to passively do it, so my inventory isn't clogged with, or rather, my production queue isn't stuck on this. I'll probably... I think I actually still have these queued up even after I finished recording. Which is pretty bad. Alright. Well, I think that's where we're going to call it for today, because the rest of the recording session was just me waiting for these things to craft. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, leave a like. If you learned something, smash that like. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing, as it does help with the channel. If you'd also be so kind, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me, leave those down below. But otherwise, if you just want to say hi, that's cool too. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Peace out.